guys, we're back again, and I've got two friends of mine out up here. First of all, Fernando, welcome to Dubai. How is this week been for you?
Oh yeah, exciting week. It's always good to be back in Dubai. It's wonderful country, people.
Absolutely. And George, also welcome.
I was scheduled to do this remotely.
Technology, we got you in 3D. So welcome, guys, and we're going to talk about, this is our last panel, but I think one of the very interesting one, where basically we look at, quantum computing, basically. So within the blockchain space, because up to now, as far as I know, the Bitcoin protocol, for example, has never been hacked. Fernando, what do you think? Is it possible that quantum computers could break this SHA-256?
There's a lot of hype at the moment around that, and look, today was announced by Google, quantum supremacy, whatever that means, 54 qubit, one didn't work, so it was 53 actually. So all of this is still experimental, and so you understand something. There's a few things in quantum, like for example, Shor algorithm. Yeah, it would take 10,000 qubits to break it. Some of the good encryptions we have today. Yeah, so I very much doubt that we are there, It's going to take a long time, 20, 30 years before we can actually start to have those things in place, yeah? But, I think there are always ways, not about brute forcing, but there's many ways to actually go about this problem, When I mean the problem is, it's a problem for the people try to hack, yeah? For us, it's different, but they see it a problem for them, so they were going to try to hack it in many different ways. But I think at the moment, we're far away from breaking blockchain.
Okay. George, what is your view on this?
My view is always different a little bit than everybody else, so let me start at the beginning. First, Bitcoin was broken not once, but I think twice, but in the early days.
Was it?
Yes, of course it was. It was broken because it allowed you to, for example, generate fake bitcoins, but only for a short period of time. But this is actually very important. The important aspect is that anything that we have today that is software is code. Mm-hmm. Any code, no matter how good it is, on average, 1,000 lines of code give you one bug. 10,000 lines of code give you a critical bug. So that really means that whether it happens to be Bitcoin, open source code, or any other code, at some stage, somebody is going to find a critical vulnerability. And that is more critical to find that vulnerability than actually trying to break the encryption itself, which is what we typically call a brute force method. There is technologies that we use today to kind of test for the presence of vulnerabilities. We use these to test, for example, equipment like IoT devices and equipment like telecom equipment. And what we do is we bombard these devices with all possible permutations of data, and we try to identify how does the device react in that context. So the first one is really about the integrity of the code. So the fact that many people tested, the integrity is better, but eventually somebody will find a vulnerability at some stage. The second thing is that it's not also just about the code or the size of the key or the complexity of the encryption algorithm. Any kind of technology lives in an ecosystem of tools.
Yes.
So at some stage, the key that you use to generate is going to be in clear text somewhere, where it happens to be when it's being transferred into memory or from memory to some private secret wallet. And what hackers do, or people who find these vulnerabilities, will try to grab it at that period of time, and that enables them to actually break the encryption. So it's a much smarter way than actually simply trying every possible permutation and then actually leading. So it's how you break the whole system or components where the system is weak, rather than just to brute force the encryption itself. So this is the things that I worry about every day, not actually breaking, brute forcing the encryption.
Got it. Welcome, Jason, as well.
Thank you for having
You know, we've been talking about quantum computing also for some time, and out of a you know, more like a philosophy kind of point of view, we've been because I'm not an IT, I don't have an IT background, is the fact that, you know, that governments or, you know, super governments might be having some kind of supercomputers or already in their use to be deployed when it comes to a company like, let's say, IBM or something, where they're going to use this kind of quantum computers. Jason, what do you think would be the possibility of a Bitcoin blockchain to be hacked by quantum computers?
Well, first of all, I have to state that I am a crypto enthusiast. I have no background in cryptography or IT technology, whereas more for me, it's about coming from the groundwork of being a trader. And being a trader, naturally, you look at all things to mitigate risk, and there's also certain risks that may seem dissonant. It's my sort of interest to explore all aspects of particular things that I am exposed to. Yeah. So in the case of Bitcoin, we do know while that people have been talking about quantum computers. I mean, maybe since the many years, right, decades. But now I think we're on the verge of where technology, if you look at CPUs, since I remember when I was a kid, I built my first computer where I think it was probably like a Pentium, and the CPUs over the years have experienced massive growth. However, I don't think, maybe people are still excited about the new CPUs that are coming out, but I think we kind of forego the race to have faster CPU, or we go for multi-core and really trying to expand the dimension of computing power. So it seems like quantum computing, I personally hope it could change what we know as computers. And I think the rapid deployment of quantum technology across all sectors, especially seeing the leading efforts in some of the various startup companies, but more so now we see main powerful companies such as Google, IBM, that are heavily invested in that front. So I do believe that Bitcoin blockchain, the only thing that I'm concerned is about the signature algorithms, which is particularly prone to the possibility of a quantum attack. Now, to be honest, no, I haven't really, I don't know anyone who actually tested it with a quantum computer against it, so I don't know whether all these things that we talk about, it's still currently on theory. Now, but as a trader, I tend to want to mitigate and hedge my risk against, the entire asset class of cryptocurrencies, where crypto is the key component in which make all of this valuable. And where beyond cryptography, it's applied not only cryptocurrencies and blockchains, it's also applied in pretty much everything that we consider valuable in a digital sense. Your digital identity, your banking, all these things are very critical that are currently protected by encryption systems. And I do believe in a different sense about global control that, countries or, subjects of power are always looking for advantages and edges over competition. So it wouldn't surprise me that a nation or a state actor would look for advantages to have edge over information control over other countries. So weaponized crypto and crypto really being utilized against nations where they're trying to hack each other or break each other's systems would definitely be prevalent. And I do think that before quantum computer can be used in the hands of retail and consumers, it's definitely going to be used in warfare and these kind of things before just similar to most technology, cutting edge technologies. It was used for military, and I think military use case of cryptography and these kind of system will be important. But also we need to consider the risk associated with that, because a lot of these people who are utilizing weapons, it's like they created nukes, right? And they kind of had to demonstrate it live on countries, and then people realize, okay, this is dangerous, we should like regulate and don't blow each other up. So until that happens in this kind of sense, it's still unknown. And for me as a trader, from a trading perspective, I definitely think this is something that anyone with exposure to crypto should be aware. And that doesn't just include the crypto community. That actually includes banks and governments and pretty much everyone who's exposed to computer systems. That's what I think about that.
I also wanted to add one thing, that every technology also can be used for bad. One is to break and brute force. But a technology like quantum can also be used for good.
Sure.
So quantum encryption as a technology has been around for over 10 years. So it's using technology known as photons. So instead of just sending packets over a traditional fiber line, you actually have two going on in parallel. One is the fiber itself, and the other one is the photons. So in case somebody detects that somebody is trying to listen to the packets that you're sending over a line, then you change the key. So it allows you to change the key almost every short period of time, like every 1 or 2 seconds. So this gives you almost unbreakable encryption over long distances. Now, there was limiters about qubits and photons, that they had a life not very stable, so they only were very good for about 100 kilometers. But if we look in the last few years, they've been able to extend. So, for example, today quantum encryption can actually be used with satellite technology. And as you know, satellites are much further apart than just 100 kilometers. They're 30,000 kilometers above.
Yes.
So I think we should always look at things from both sides, not just from one side. Am I concerned about crypto technology for the immediate future? No. But any technology, to stay relevant, needs to update itself. So at some stage, whether it's 1 week or maybe 3 years from now, somebody's going to have to enhance the capabilities of those algorithms, no matter what.
Yeah, so just to add as well on what George said, quantum resistance, there's several approaches to quantum resistance, yeah? And I mentioned a bit earlier that, and but it's not ideal, yeah? Like I said, with enough qubits, you will be able then to bypass some of these, yeah? Now, there are people working on quantum entangled blockchains. There's a specific project, I can't remember the name, I was trying to remember on that. And the approach is completely different, yeah? So the blocks only exist in time and not in space. So what that means is you only have the current block. You don't have the previous blocks.
Okay.
And then that changes completely, because then you cannot break it. It's completely proof to quantum computing, yeah? I urge everyone to start to look at quantum entangling blockchains, because that is, for me, in my opinion, that's going to be the future. Yeah. George is right. You have to update. You have to continue to go, and that, for me, is the way to go.
There used to be a very interesting magazine many years ago that had a cartoon called Spy versus Spy.
Yes.
There used to be a white spy and a black spy.
I love it.
The white spy used to do something, the black spy did something better. And the white spy did something better. The point is, it's a race that never finishes.
Okay.
So no matter how good you are, somebody will become better than you are. So you have to keep refreshing the capability of the technology. So there's no such thing as unbreakable technology forever. It will remain unbreakable for a period of time, but then you have to upgrade its capabilities.
And in this lifespan, is it still becoming like shorter and shorter and shorter?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, that is basically, there's something like a half-time basically that, like you said 20, 30 years, and then, next time it might be 15 years.
It could be less.
Even less.
It could be less than 20, 30 years, At the pace we're going, it's just a calculation. We thought as well Moore's law was going to last until 2035. And then we'll have the singularity, Moore's law is gone.
Yeah.
We're in 2019. So who knows?
For me personally, as for a trading long-term outlook, it's very interesting to watch what happens with Bitcoin and crypto over the next 2 years. That's the time frame we're looking at.
Why do you say 2 years?
Well, by I believe it's by 2020 or 2021, all U.S. government system will be switched over to post-quantum encrypted systems. Okay. So the U.S. government has already had the mandate, and that was like many years ago. The NSA basically says, "Hey guys, we got to switch," and as soon as the U.S. does that, I'm sure other governments and other, countries will follow suit. But it takes time, and even if quantum computers are 10, 15 years away, 20 years away, 10 years is not a long time to rip out. I mean, you're talking about ripping out the fabric, and it's not an easy task. I mean, large corporation particularly, the kind of, mass amount of systems that you have to really go and, fix up and check, it's not an easy task. And I think 1 or 2 years is even kind of challenging task for these kind of, imagine Amazon tomorrow is going to switch the kind of data centers and all the actual hardware and all the management. It's a very interesting task. It's not something that you just say, "Hey guys, we're going to switch." No, you got to make a plan, and I think a 10-year plan isn't out of reach for countries particularly. And I think that it's always good to be prepared, than not. Right? I'd rather jump out of the plane with a parachute than without a parachute.
I usually like to use the analogy of a car because people understand this analogy very. I remember I always make this joke, but it's a serious one. 20-some years ago, I visited Pakistan. I sit on the car, I go like this. There is no seat belt. I turned to my friends, "Where is the seat belt?" They told me optional. I mean, it's not that long ago that seat belts were optional in cars. So people today, when they drive a car, you have seat belt, airbag, traction control, collision avoidance system. And now if you drive a Tesla, you have AI, even better. But guess what? Even in the Tesla, you can hurt yourself. So that is really the point. It doesn't matter what amount of technology you put. If somebody is being reckless in the usage of whatever system it is, you're going to get hurt. Including traders as well.
Yeah.
Last year, about $2 billion worth of crypto got lost.
Oh,
yeah. That's a huge amount.
Lost.
So, Fernando, if you look at the funding of these kind of projects, is it always governments who are funding this? Or are there private companies who are specialized in looking at these quantum computers and trying to upgrade them?
There are things we know, there are things we don't know. Yeah, I have no doubt that Google is probably being contracted at some point by some agency in the US or Microsoft. We don't know those things. Yeah, but it is a fact that both are working on it across the world, and that's not just the US. Yeah, we're talking that's more about US, but China, Russia, Israel, very powerful countries with amazing technologists, amazing brains. So it's a combination of both, and I truly believe that both private and governments work together in many of these.
Okay.
And also educational institutions do play a role, because typically things like higher education organizations like universities, they're given some funds to experiment. Now, not everything they experiment with becomes a technology that is practical, but a small percentage does, and then governments or private industry grabs it and turns it into an overall system.
Okay, that's very interesting, right? So, I mean, this week also in Abu Dhabi, the Fintech week is happening. So a lot of bigger companies are looking at these small startups, fintechs, basically, how they can, get their ideas basically onboarded on their platform or in their company, basically, to make a use of it. But if you look at this also, that a bigger entity like a government can also look at these small research and development within universities, basically as a playground to understand and maybe also get kind of these technologies onboarded. So before I'm going to let you guys go, I'm going to ask you about your favorite projects. I mean, George, you see a lot of projects, throughout the year coming along. Is there something which you're like, hey, this is something new. This is something noteworthy to share with our friends at Talk Sense, which could, give them some insight what is happening right now?
There is at least, I would say, 2 or 3 types of projects that I consider very noteworthy. I will not mention names because it's important not to do that. I think that the projects that are pushing the capabilities of what the technology is doing today. So today we're talking now about blockchain 4.0 and 5.0. What does that really mean? That really means we're pushing the boundary of the number of transactions we can do per second, like above 1 million. You may think 1 million is a lot, but if you're trying to do an IoT system in a smart city, 1 million is not so much. So you need more than that.
Yeah,
that's one. The second type of projects is the projects that combine 2 or 3 technologies together. So blockchain does not exist by itself. It has to exist in a system. So there's people that are combining blockchain with AI or robotics. And why this is important? Because AI needs to be trusted. Blockchain is a technology of trust.
Yes.
So the two have some overlapping capabilities that, if I'm teaching this model and this machine learning, if I put a small layer of blockchain on top, these are the models that I should trust, and these ones are less trustworthy.
Got it.
So it enables you to do things in a much better way than you did before. And this is where I think the big changes are coming. It's not always like a big light thing. It's small increments where you combine these technologies together.
Fernando, anything
apart from my project, which is exciting, which we use some of those technologies, I think I'm going to touch base on something that George said, the speed, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some good projects out there, not mentioning names, but there's billions of IT devices already, it's going to go it's going to explode in the next 3 years. So we really have to move on with high transactions from blockchains, it's extremely important. But there are things, with AI with blockchain, there's some people now working on this. Why it is important? Just think about this. AIs at the moment, there's no really ethics agreed on AIs. But let's say there will be ethics agreed for AI. How are you going to verify, every decision of an AI? Yeah, let's say an AI made a decision and an aeroplane crashes and everybody dies. You need to look at all of those decisions at the millisecond level that an AI made. So traceability, and blockchain can provide that. And because it's immutable, we need to start to think very seriously how you can make then those AIs, whatever these AIs are, be responsible, because there's no way at the moment. Okay. If a decision is made by an AI, we don't know when it was caused, the accident or whatever it is. It could be, I don't know, in medicine, in an operation, surgical operation, whatever it is. We need to have that traceability of all of those decisions that the AI has made, That's some of the projects out there that are doing this. I think is quite exciting,
All right.
And they will have a big space in the AI world,
And, are we looking at 3 years, 5 years? What kind of time span are you?
2 years.
2 years. All right. Exciting times then. Jason, do you have anything, where we look into this space, where we have to look kind of, really put our attention towards some projects which could be very, very interesting?
Well, I think based off of what these two gentlemen have mentioned, obviously that's very good points. I'm not, again, I think IoT and the future of what that future looks like definitely makes sense in terms of, you're going to have, the future of exchanges, I believe, will be like power, what happens when millions, if not billions of devices need to communicate with each other and make transactions with each other. Are we going to do that through Binance? Not necessarily. Maybe it's going to become a different kind of exchange mechanism, and is there ways for humans or to intervene and to participate in that kind of market? That's also unknown. So I'm very interested in definitely the AI and the blockchain, and also a combination of these kind of technologies to sort of build a future stack. But the two major classes I think that's definitely worthy of focus is, number one is Fintech, the technology utilized for financial inclusion and making the world a better place. That's one. And second is biotech, where healthcare and anything related to make our whether it's our mind or body or spirituality, whatever that may be, to lead a healthier lifestyle. And I believe the combination, I'm not going to name any exactly companies, but these two particular fields in parallel should bring about a lot of alpha generation for traders, or at least that's my thesis on investment for the next 30 years is healthcare, fintech. Money and health is the two most important things that anyone can give a shit about. So.
Security. If you don't have security, you will be in trouble.
True. That's based on the foundation of security.
What about happiness? I had to throw that one in there.
Sure. Yeah, security.
That's a plug.
Absolutely.
What is the minister?
Thank you so much, guys, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us. It's been really insightful. Thank you so much, and let's go party now.
Okay. Thank you.